Why does Dubai have so many skyscrapers? Look toward the horizon, and you see a skyline that seems to defy the laws of gravity and logic.
What would your ordinary day look like if reaching home meant climbing a cliff, crossing frozen water, or watching for polar bears? Far beyond the familiar images of Dubai and Paris are communities shaped by rock walls, violent seas, high deserts, underground courtyards, and months of Arctic darkness. A shop hangs above climbers in China. A former light station rises from the Atlantic, and monasteries stand, where altitude controls every breath. These places are not proof that people ignore nature. They show the opposite. Daily life survives because generations learned when to adapt, when to relocate, and when the landscape must be treated with complete respect. Cliffs turn ordinary work into a test of nerve. At Shiniuzhai National Geological Park in China's Hunan province, a tiny shop was fixed to a cliff more than 100 meters above the ground. It was created to provide water and snacks to climbers moving along the route. The structure looks impossible from below, but its purpose is practical. Climbers become tired and thirsty while attached to the rock, so the shop brings basic supplies to the place where they are needed. The real story is not a shopkeeper risking certain death for a few coins. It is how a recreational climbing route turned a small wooden shelter into one of the strangest convenience stores on Earth. Farther southwest, Baoshan Stone City in Yunnan is a Naxi settlement built across a huge rock platform above the Jinsha River. Houses, courtyards, paths, and farmland follow the shape of the mountain instead of forcing the mountain into a modern grid. For centuries, residents depended on steep trails and pack animals to move goods. Access has improved, and tourism now connects the village more closely with the outside world. But its form still shows an older agreement between people and terrain. The rock is not simply underneath the settlement. It organizes the settlement. Atuleer in Sichuan became famous after photographs showed Yi villagers and schoolchildren using ladders along an immense cliff. The original route included vine and wooden ladders. A steel staircase with thousands of steps was later installed, making access safer. In 2020, many registered poor households moved to new homes in a nearby town, while the old route and village became connected with tourism. That update matters. Presenting the ladder as the unchanged daily route of an entire village is outdated. The stronger story is how public attention, infrastructure, relocation, and tourism changed a place once defined by dangerous isolation. Sea and altitude rewrite the rules of access. 32 miles off North Carolina, Frying Pan Tower rises above the Atlantic near the dangerous Frying Pan Shoals. The structure began as a Coast Guard light station designed to warn ships away from shallow waters. It is no longer an active lighthouse. A nonprofit now works with volunteers to restore it and use it for education and research. Reaching the platform still demands careful planning, suitable weather, and specialized transport. The tower is dramatic enough without inventing loose railings, certain death, or hurricane currents beneath every visitor. Its isolation and exposed steel frame already explain why maintaining it is such difficult work. In northern Ethiopia, Abuna Yemata Guh is carved into a sandstone formation in the Geralta Mountains. Visitors approach through a steep climb and exposed final section before entering a church decorated with religious paintings. The route is not an ordinary walk, and local guides are essential. Yet the site should not be reduced to a contest for the world's most dangerous church. It is a living place of worship, whose location offered isolation, protection, and spiritual meaning. The achievement is not only reaching it, it is preserving sacred art and religious practice in a place where every repair and every visit must respect the mountain. Key Monastery stands above the Spiti Valley in Himachal Pradesh, India, at more than 4,000 meters above sea level. Its white buildings rise in stacked levels that give the complex a fortress-like appearance. The monastery remains a center of Tibetan Buddhist life and holds scriptures, wall hangings, paintings, and religious objects. Roads now connect the area, but altitude, winter, and the remote trans-Himalayan landscape still shape travel. Here, isolation is not a dramatic trick. It is part of the monastery's history, rhythm, and ability to preserve a tradition across centuries. Communities hidden by ice, earth, and darkness. Ittoqqortoormiit sits on Greenland's remote east coast, surrounded by mountains, sea ice, and a vast Arctic landscape. Ships can reach the settlement only during a limited season, and flights require connections through a small airstrip and helicopter service. Hunting, fishing, sled dogs, and knowledge of ice remain important beside modern communication and public services. Polar bears are a real regional danger, but stories that every door remains unlocked for emergency escape are difficult to verify and should not be treated as fact. The honest reality is powerful enough. Distance and weather can control when supplies, travel, and outside help are possible. Near Sanmenxia in China's Henan province, traditional Yaodong courtyard homes are dug down into thick loess soil. From above, a settlement can resemble open farmland punctured by large square courtyards. Rooms extend horizontally from the sunken central space, using the earth to moderate heat in summer and cold in winter. The design is not an entire secret city built for shock. It is a long-developed form of climate adaptation. Fruit trees, cooking, family life, storage, and work can all gather around the courtyard while the surrounding ground provides shelter. Longyearbyen in Svalbard is a modern Arctic settlement with more than 1,000 permanent residents, not 24. Polar bears do not rule the streets, and loaded firearms are forbidden inside the settlement. Outside built-up areas, however, travelers must take polar bear safety seriously, carry suitable deterrents, and the governor recommends firearms for qualified users. The town also lives through the midnight sun and a long polar night. Warming, thawing ground, avalanches, and changing snow conditions create real planning challenges. But claiming the whole town could collapse at any moment replaces science with empty fear. Faith and community endure in unlikely landscapes. At the source of the Buna River in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Blagaj Tekke stands beside turquoise water under a tall limestone cliff. The 16th century dervish complex joins architecture, spiritual practice, and one of the region's most striking karst springs. Visitors often focus on the image of a wooden building beneath rock, but the site is more than a photograph. It remains connected to religious history and living cultural memory. Water, stone, and worship share the same narrow space, creating a landscape that feels peaceful precisely because each element is so powerful. Larung Gar in Sichuan spreads across a high valley in thousands of red cabins surrounding a major center of Tibetan Buddhist study. Its scale once made it one of the world's most recognizable monastic settlements. The story is also politically sensitive. Demolitions, removals, population controls, and access restrictions have been reported since 2016. And recent United Nations material has raised further concerns. It is therefore misleading to describe the site only as a magical red city or to state uncertain population numbers as settled fact. Its visual beauty exists beside serious questions about religious life, state policy, and who is allowed to remain. Together, these places break the lazy idea that foreign travel means only famous skylines, luxury shopping, and polished city streets. They reveal homes shaped by loess, worship protected by cliffs, transport limited by ice, and public safety governed by altitude or wildlife. Some communities preserve old methods. Others accept roads, stairs, relocation, tourism, or modern regulation. Their strength does not come from defeating nature. It comes from reading the landscape clearly and changing daily life before pride turns difficulty into disaster. From a cliff shop in Hunan to an Arctic town in Svalbard, these places show that geography is not background scenery. It decides how people travel, build, worship, work, and protect one another. Some dramatic stories become less sensational when the facts are corrected, but they also become more meaningful. Atuleer changed after relocation. Longyearbyen is a real community rather than a polar bear myth, and ancient homes remain useful because their design fits the land. The lasting lesson is respect. Human courage matters, but survival depends even more on knowledge, honest limits, and the willingness to adapt when mountains, oceans, ice, or climate make the rules. If you enjoyed this deep dive into their life and career, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next story.